Hello, Hoosiers. Having a little technical difficulties, but what else is new? If this thing seems to engage, then we'll continue. I think it's going now. Good day, Hoosiers. How are you feeling? Confused? Used? Abused? I don't blame you. The situation does indeed seem bleak. Our God-given natural rights are seemingly under attack from all angles. And you know what? It's only going to get worse. Much, much worse. But Hoosiers, do not despair. There is a way out of this mess. There is a solution. The Constitution solution. Hello, I'm Dr. Chris McGarrah from Warsaw, Indiana, with yet another episode of The Constitution Solution. In today's episode, I want to specifically address those courageous Hoosiers who have chosen to run for elected office as their contribution to manning Firewall, Indiana. Thank you. But be forewarned, your resolve will be tested. First, allow me to make a few brief suggestions concerning constitutional knowledge base resources. The globalist collectivist conspiracy has a well-developed and implemented plan for the tyranny of the New World Order. Likewise, we must have a cohesive plan of opposition. My suggestions are to consult the following resources. The John Birch Society, jbs.org, for the essentials of constitutional government and for details concerning the conspiracy. The 10th Amendment Center, and that's spelled out, TENTH Amendment Center, especially their thrice weekly podcast, Path to Liberty. That's all one word spelled out, no spaces, Path to Liberty. For a Christian worldview of politics, there is the daily briefing show from Dr. Albert Mohler, Mohler. Of course, there are the online courses from Hillsdale College for incredible details and background information. The Epoch Times for general news, and especially the Epoch TV series American Thought Leaders. And for constitutional education with a heavy dose of wit and entertainment, there are the Krisanne Hall podcasts, and that's Krisanne Hall, krisannehall.com, Liberty First Society. And for all things medical, there is the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, aapsonline.org. That's aapsonline.org. My favorite. I happen to be a member. So are the doctors Paul, Ron, and Rand. Use these references and you will become a constitutional juggernaut. Unstoppable. Before proceeding any further, we need to precisely define just who we are. Yes, words matter. Clarity avoids confusion and deception. Again, we know who they are. The globalist, collectivist cabal. But again, who are we? We. The full answer is to be found in the John Birch Society 29-minute video entitled Overview of America. I urge everyone to watch this before you go any further with political activity. Allow me to suggest some simple and clear terms. I personally find that the much-used labels of conservative, liberal, left, right, rhino are imprecise and confusing. Here is an example. Many of us use the label conservative. But what exactly is a conservative? Well, it's someone who values tradition and resists change. However, that term needs a timestamp to have clear meaning. As an illustration, in 1776, a conservative was a Tory or Crown loyalist. In contrast, our founders were classical liberals, as in liberty. So when someone describes themselves as a real true conservative, and you know who I'm talking about, smile and be skeptical. They are either confused or deceptive. After all, there are conservative or orthodox communists. So, what is a better identifier? I have a suggestion. The best label for them is globalist collectivist, or GC. Simple and clear, globalist collectivist. Oh, by the way, GC is medical slang for gonococcus, a bacteria that causes a rather nasty venereal disease. Enough on that subject. Okay, enough about them. What about us? As for myself, I am a constitutional Republican with either a big R or a little r, depending upon the context. Remember, the only, and I repeat, only function of government is to secure our God-given natural rights and liberties, and our founders from the sovereign states examined all known history to settle on a federal model of a constitutional republic to secure those God-given rights. The Constitution 100% of the time. No exceptions. Now that we know who we are, let's move on. During the course of campaigning, you are going to encounter people who do not share our view of liberty and constitutional fidelity. Why? What makes someone think and act that way? We need a simple and clear and uniform response to understand those individuals. Now remember, we live in a fallen world. A fallen world, correct? So in a political worldview, why not borrow the religious term to describe the constitutional and liberty challenged? How about constitutional fallen, or CFs, or liberty fallen, or LFs, or politically fallen, PFs, or simply the fallen? When in doubt, look to the founders. In this case, founder James Otis Jr., aka the Midwife of Liberty. In 1761, long time ago, James Otis Jr. stated that men oppose liberty for one or more of three basic reasons: guilt, malice, or folly. Guilt, malice, or folly. Now, translated into modern American English, that becomes pragmatism, malice, or ignorance. Pragmatism, malice, or ignorance. Write this down. So during your quest for office, when you encounter a person who opposes liberty, don't rant, don't bloviate, don't shout, don't melt down. Be calm. Be calm and simply ask, both mentally and verbally, why? Why does this person oppose liberty? Pragmatism, malice, or ignorance? Ignorance of the principles of liberty and constitutional republic. Pragmatism, malice, ignorance. The PMIs. As always, look back to the founders. And now allow me to impart to you the best way to simplify politics and governance. Simple. Consider the fact that for this session of the Indiana General Assembly, there are a total of 324 bills and resolutions which have been filed for consideration by the Indiana House of Representatives and the Indiana Senate. That's right, 324. That's a problem just in and of itself for all of those of you seeking state office. So I ask you, what is a candidate, a legislator, official, or citizen to do? How do you make sense of it all? 324 bills and resolutions. Again, don't despair. There is a solution. And of course, it is a Constitution solution. Allow me to explain. It is really quite simple. It is called the three-question rule, and it was developed by the late Congressman from Georgia, Representative Larry McDonald, M.D. He was a urologist. By the way, you should look up the story of the fearless communist hunter, Dr. MacDonald, and his untimely death in the 1983 downing of Korean Airlines Flight 007. Look it up. You'll be surprised. But let's get back to the 3-question rule. Whenever any legislator, official, bureaucrat, candidate, voter considers any bill, ordinance, rule, or resolution, etc., that person should always ask the following 3 questions in this specific order. I repeat, consider these 3 questions in this specific order. Number 1, is it constitutional? Number 2, can we afford it? And number 3, do we need it? Constitutional, afford, and need, in that order only. Most politicians and candidates exhibit constitutional confusion and consider the questions in reverse priority. That's not how it works in the Constitution solution. Now, I don't care if it's a 2,500-page bill. As Dr. Representative MacDonald was fond of saying, he just starts reading the bill. And if on page 1 he encounters an unconstitutional item, it's relegated to the wastebasket there and then. No further reading required. So remember the 3-question rule, and you will never lose your focus, and you will never become one of the fallen. Allow me to begin to wrap up with a few words of general advice. When challenging the globalist collectivists, the GCs, remember, they specialize in multifaceted attacks. And here's the key. With them, the issue is never the issue. The issue is never the issue. The revolution is always the issue. So, candidates, stay focused. Don't play endless whack-a-mole. Our God-given natural rights and liberties, as secured by our constitutional republic, are the issue. Got it? Simple. Consider the 1783 words of William Pitt the Younger in an address before Parliament. And I quote, "Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves." Let me repeat that. And as I'm repeating that, think about today's world and what we hear constantly from politicians in the media. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. Consider the words from 1776 from founder and president John Adams. And I quote, "Fear is the foundation of most governments." Fear. Fear is the foundation of most governments. But it is so sordid and brutal a passion, and renders men in whose breasts it predominates so stupid and miserable that Americans will not be likely to approve of any political institution which is founded on it. How did they know? How did they know? Look to the founders. They knew. So, here's my favorite part. So in closing, Hoosiers, remember, doctor's orders. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. But above all, keep your distance. Keep your distance from those socialists, statists, globalists, collectivists, politicians, and bureaucrats. Because now, Hoosiers, you know exactly who they are. They can no longer hide behind the curtain. So in 2022, it's time to drain the indie swamp. Let's restore our God-given natural rights and liberties. Let's get to it. All right? So, God bless you, God bless Indiana, and God bless these United States of America. Good night.